Welcome to the Business Legends Podcast, where we interview business leaders and entrepreneurs so that you can learn from their successes, become inspired, and meet the people that make change happen. I'm the host of the show, Reese Arlen, along with my co-host who's matching me today kind of weirdly. Christian, say hello to the people.
Hello. I just want everybody to know that our guest today brought a giant camera. A lens that's like telescope.
My gift to you.
I'm not saying that you're emasculating us with your giant camera, but today our guest is a super entrepreneur. We are so excited to have him. And actually, we've known him for 10-ish, 12-ish years now. So,
time flies.
Chris, thank you so much. Chris Coutinho, super entrepreneur. Thank you so much for joining us today.
I'm very happy to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
I am so happy to have you. So, before we dig into what the show's really about, entrepreneurship and inspiring others, I just want to affirm for our listeners that Christian Webb, this one right here, personally trained you 12 years ago. Is that correct?
Well, the fact you have to ask me. Yes. He was a fantastic trainer.
He was. I must say. So here's a funny thing for our listeners. We always joke about how we used to be personal trainers, and Christian was actually my manager back then. And I will tell you, I am the least manageable person in the entire world. So he would tell me to do things, I'd be like, I don't think I want to do that. And then that's the way.
Yeah. Why did we partner up again?
And now we partnered and had a business for 7 years. So I don't know. Maybe stubbornness gets you far. But anyway, so the show's about you. Tell us about your entrepreneurial journey. So where would you say entrepreneurship started for you?
Oof.
My entrepreneur journey probably started in Moscow.
Okay. Wow.
Back when I was 16.
Okay.
17 years old. We went on a school trip. My soccer team and the student council. We put our money together, and we had our vice principal sponsored us, and we all went to Russia.
Wow.
At the time. Well, USSR back then. That's how old I am.
Wow.
Yeah. Back when they weren't invading.
You look great for 30, man.
Yeah, I know. Back then the Soviet Union was had a black market, and which meant that they had rubles that was only good in Russia. But they didn't take in a lot of Western goods. So things like jeans you could sell for like $200-$300.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and I knew this flying over there. And when I got there, it was an education trip, and we had a couple sports events that we're going to participate in. But the first thing I did is I was like, I wonder if anybody will ask me for jeans. And sure enough, first day, someone asked me for some jeans, and man, I loved it.
Yeah.
I sold almost all my own clothes.
Wow.
I sold, which I realized.
That is entrepreneurship right there, my friend.
Well, true entrepreneurship was when I started brokering clothing deals for the rest of my team and everybody else. And that's when I learned the value of understanding currencies.
Yeah.
And so I was getting paid $300-$400 in rubles. Mm-hmm. And it was like 2 days before we left Russia, the Soviet Union, to fly back to Canada. Mm-hmm. And I had several $1,000 in rubles, and I thought at that time I probably could retire.
Yeah,
so, you know, that was a lot of money to me.
That's huge, yeah.
Had no idea, but
well, 16. I mean, God,
yeah,
that's rent. That's rent.
I was like the big man on campus back then. Like
right.
$7,000 back then is probably 20 today.
Sure.
Yeah. So I had all this rubles. I was like buying people stuff, and then the vice principal came up and said, what are you gonna do with all those rubles? And I said, I don't know. I might invest it when I get home. He says, well, they're only good in Russia. You can't use them outside. And I was shocked. So I went on a huge spending spree, and I have.
I had about jeans back.
No, they had really crappy clothing there, but I did buy Russian hats and.
Cool. Do you still have any? Just out of
I
curiosity?
do.
Oh, that's awesome.
I have
really
Russian
cool.
bags and stuff, and I still had by the end of it, and I was buying everybody clothes at that point because I was just trying to get rid of it all.
It's amazing there's no exchange. Like you would think that you could go to something, but
no, there's exchange, but it's only one way.
Oh, I see. I see. That's incredible.
And I had all these rubles left over, and I thought, what would a normal 17-year-old dude do? And I went and bought vodka with it.
I was hoping you would say that. That's exactly what I would have done, for sure.
So bought a shopping cart worth of vodka and grapefruit juice for some reason. Brought it up to my hotel room, and then invited everybody into it. And we had to have a huge party, and there was a knock on the door, and the vice principal coming in. He goes, guys, there's a soccer match on TV, and he looks around, and there's like vodka bottles everywhere.
Yeah.
And that's how I got the entire student council kicked out of school.
Oh no!
Yeah, that was my contribution.
Oh my God!
Yeah, so we got kicked out for about a week.
Yeah,
it was like a suspension.
Yeah,
week or 10 days.
Yeah,
but I was that kid that they
was it a fun party?
Like, we barely got a drink, barely took a sip, and he came in. But we looked like a chandelier store. There was so much glass in that room. But that was my first. But I loved
a great story.
I loved it. I loved it, and I went off to college and eventually started a little painting business in college. That's a long, good story. One day, if I come back again, I'll tell you that one because it's really very interesting too.
Real fast, do you feel like the actual the spirit of entrepreneurship carried over from that event to the painting, or do you feel like you just were like, hey, I'm gonna do some painting stuff?
I think Russia sparked what was in me because I played sports and I always worked to become the captain. I had to be the captain of whatever sport I was playing on. So I would do that, and I wanted to do that because I wanted to make sure that things were fair. I hated, and I still to this day hate bullying. And so I saw a lot of that in elementary school, high school. Sure. And so I wanted to become a captain of the team when I could, because I knew athletes had a fair bit of sway.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that was the main reason I got into sports, was actually because of that. Was I wanted to become I wanted to make sure that there was fairness there. And so I think that was in me right from grade 6, 7, 8, all the way through.
And I was thinking about sports for ladies.
That's all it was for me too.
Yeah. You must have had a very deep mind in high school.
Yeah, no kidding. Did you? I want to dig into that a little bit deeper too. Do you? I mean, there's obviously multiple components that make people not only a successful athlete, but things like captain, drivers for leadership, and otherwise. But do you? You kind of said that your driver, your driver was that you wanted to prevent bullying and you wanted people to be treated fairly and have I'd almost say like a community type of a thing. Mm-hmm. Has that carried with you into adulthood? Like, have you done much in the way of continuing that driver, or was that something that drove you then, type of thing?
It's still the number one driver for me.
Yeah.
Our company, we have a number of core values, but the core of our core values is compassion. Yeah. And every single person in our company, first of all, they can do everything better than I could do. Yeah. So I'm the guy they tell to get out of the way, mm-hmm. which is what I'm good at. I'm good at getting the right people, but part of that right person is to make sure that they have an element of compassion. And compassion is essentially not just feeling what that person feels, but a desire to want to help that person. Sure. On top of that, so you can have a person who's has a lot of empathy or sympathy, but that does not convey into action. Mm-hmm. Action is when compassion comes in. And so everybody in our company, they're introverts, extroverts, it doesn't matter. But what they all have is a sense of desire to want to fix a problem for mm-hmm. somebody. So we're in the transportation supply chain business. We deal with clients, we deal with trucking companies, we deal with vendors, and it's nonstop problems. And what makes us unique is that each person isn't like, oh crap, a problem. They're like desiring to fix these problems. Yeah. So we're a small company. We don't even market ourselves. I know it's not a good thing, but mm-hmm. we're
seems to be a good thing.
Yeah, it seems to be doing all right.
Yeah, the painting business that I helped get started, we had a bunch of partners in it. At our height, we had 4,000 painters in 26 states, 7 provinces. It was called Student Painters. It's still existing. Oh, wow. A good buddy of mine, Steve Acorn, still runs a huge operation. But that whole massive number of people developed all these desires for systems, processes. And then when I got into the first guy I ever hired when I moved to the States from Canada was Mike Prager from Georgetown University, and he sets all these records. And someday you guys should have him on board.
We will.
He is a
If he
legend.
says yes. Yeah.
That guy is a legend.
Yeah.
And and then he and another friend of his, David Miller, started up a company. At the time, there was no name for it. And Mike called me up, and I was getting out of the student painting business in 1999. And he invited me to come down, and I was like the first guy he hired into Avid.
Yeah.
But it wasn't even Avid Exchange back then. It was just, we just worked on a name. And so that had
it's cyclical.
Small, and then Paystar Logistics, which I did after I exited Avid Exchange, has got 25 employees. We're a small, focused, but we are extremely efficient, and we've won with some Fortune 500 companies that we work with, Carrier of the Year, beating out billion-dollar companies.
Yeah.
Just in the sense of how we manage our business. We're very, very, very efficient.
Yeah,
So,
it's such an amazing journey. So you go from Russian, and I feel like the spark became alive because the first thing you said,
spark
you know,
yeah.
And then you go from Russia, get suspended, and just out of curiosity, do you still talk to anybody that was in that room from the chandelier room?
I'm Facebook friends with my vice principal
and
the principal.
Wow, there you go.
Both of which kicked me out of school, suspended me.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, George Watson,
yeah,
the principal, and Greg Larson,
yeah,
the vice principal. They both suspended me, and we're both very good friends.
Wow,
yeah.
that's amazing.
I still call them Mr. Watson and Mr. Larson.
Yeah,
they'll forever be that.
It's a respect
authoritative figures in my head.
Yeah,
yeah,
for sure.
Yeah.
Isn't it amazing that sometimes you even go through a trial, if you will, or getting in trouble a little bit like that, and then after the fact you kind of come out on top of it, and possibly even stronger because of the situation than if it wouldn't have happened, you know?
Well, failures are absolutely required for success. It's like I was on a rifle team, and the first thing you do when you get to your next event is you sight your rifle in. You're not trying to hit a bullseye. Yeah. What you're trying to do is see where the bullet went so you can make adjustments. Right. So when you're setting your rifle in, you're not getting upset if your shot is not dead center. You're just trying to get bearings off of it. Yeah. And business is very similar to that. As you see, I tend to learn a lot about business through very non-traditional methods. Yeah. But I thought, failure is like that. That's exactly what failure is. I don't want failure, but if I'm not having failure, I'm leaving a lot of money on the table. I got to push and push and push. And the same thing goes for my team. They can make mistakes. I want them to make mistakes. And then that's the way we learn and get better. Sure. At what we do.
How do you make out of curiosity? How do you make so? You started Paystar in 2003. Is that correct?
Correct.
So 20 years in, I'm sure you've had some mistakes that maybe went a little bit too far, type of a thing.
Yeah.
And have you ever had like a terminable offense, something that was just so bad that they couldn't get past it, or you had to terminate somebody out of that?
Oh, where it had to let people go.
Right.
Well, sadly, back in 2008, that's when we had a lot of bank. You guys are so young. I don't know if you remember this.
I remember.
Yeah. So it was.
I just graduated high school.
Yeah. Okay. So you watch your parents go through it too.
Sure.
Yeah. So very stressful times, and I had just taken my dad to England for his birthday, and my wife and I were there with him, and it was in September, the last week of September, and one of our key clients who had just swore up and down that we're with you for life and everything, they shut down the division that we supported.
Oh,
and that
wow.
was almost half our company.
Oh boy.
So I was like, it was like a gut punch,
Yeah.
And I'm in Europe at the time, and I said to my wife, I said, Beth, it's okay. We got money in the bank. We're okay. We're not. It's just really sad that we're going to lose so much business. When I get back, I'll see if I can try to recoup it. But then 4 days later, I'm watching. It was a Friday night. I'm watching the news, and it was a big. It was Wachovia, and there was a big run on the Wachovia where all our money was at. And that's when I turned to Beth and said, okay, this could shut us down. Right. If there's a total run on the bank, and I think Citibank put a bid on them, and Wells Fargo eventually bought them and saved them up. So at the end of the day, we were safe there. But when I came back,
you didn't feel safe though.
No.
yeah, I know, but I'm much better prepared for it than it was. I've got money in like 8 different banks. So, but when I got back, I did my very best to try to get back the business. I flew up to, it was with Kohler, actually. They shut down a division of their company. And I flew up to Kohler, Wisconsin and met. And I did, in fact, recoup business, but they weren't going to start it up for maybe 5-6 months. And I just knew that we were not going to be able to support everybody. And I cared so much about my team that, maybe 10 or 15 years earlier, I would have said, no, we're all going to make this. But I was threatening everybody's life if I tried to do that. And so I unfortunately had to take half the company and let them all go.
Oh, wow.
And that was very painful. Still very painful.
Yeah.
Thinking about it, because these are good people.
Yeah.
And people look at business owners like that, like you're just the worst person in the world. But really, like, if you wouldn't have done that, you would have had to let them all go.
Oh, yeah, we would have. That would have been the case. We didn't have the cash to support us for that long. And it was just unfortunate. But that's the very tough decisions I had to make. Any good CEO would have to make those decisions. The natural inclination is to say, like, we're all going to live. You don't want to make that decision. But I found, for me anyways, I felt like I was just avoiding making a very tough decision. The right decision was I had to cut to make sure that the half that I kept would live. And it worked. And then as we grew, I started hiring back some of the people that we had let go.
I was about to ask that,
Yeah. And so we got some back. Others had moved on and
hired the ones back that didn't flip you off on the way out.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't blame them for being angry. I mean, they look to me to provide employment, and this was in a very tough time, very tough market, right when the recession was kicking off. So it was very rough to do it. But the way I looked at it, and the way I still look at it, is I stand by my decision, which is I was saving half my company.
Yeah.
And now your company's pretty successful by definition, I would say.
It's designed exactly the way I would want it to be, to allow myself maximum enjoyment of my company and enjoyment of my life. So
that's perfect.
Yeah.
I think as entrepreneurs, I think when you first get into business, you might have some driver. Maybe for you it was to have compassion within your business, for example. Maybe for some folks it was a financial driver, right? That with entrepreneurship there's no ceiling. The floor is pretty low, but there's no ceiling with entrepreneurship. Moving forward, as you kind of grow into your business, you're going to twist the knobs and pull the pulleys that make the business a reflection of yourself. We were talking about this before the show, like before COVID or during COVID. You said that you kind of, to use your words, you said you kind of had a lack of vision through that period.
Yeah.
I want to talk about that a little bit. So why did you feel that way, and what did you do about it ultimately, other than being that the world went into chaos?
I think you could probably talk to a lot of CEOs, and our jobs, as you guys are, your leaders, is to have your vision and then get your vision across to everybody. So we're the vision protectors. We create this vision and we keep everyone focused on this vision. Well, they literally shut the world down. I remember it started March 11th or so when the NBA shut down, and within hours, then the hockey's on at the same time. Being Canadian, I know this. And also in March was March Madness. Do you remember that whole discussion?
Yep.
So it went from professional sports,
funny story about that,
around the world, and to college level sports, to high school sports. This was happening in hours. The whole thing, and then it transferred over to businesses at this point, because it became overwhelmingly obvious that getting people together is not going to happen.
Right.
So then businesses started to. So within 3 weeks, the world was just shutting right down. And in April, and we're in the supply chain business, and everyone's supposed to stay in their home, and we literally had like 10% of the business to move. Like there's still some trucks moving, but and no idea where
gonna come
no one
back,
knew.
or- yeah.
No one had a clue. But I couldn't say that to my team.
Right.
I had to be very, very positive and go like, yeah, guys, this is bad, but the world has to have supplies. We are very well placed. We have deep relationships with our core clients. So we're very well positioned when this starts to come back. And thankfully it did. Very quickly we went from we were down almost 85% in a matter of weeks.
85%.
But
We thought we had it bad.
because
we
of
went down
the
about 40.
PPP loan and the use of unemployment and everything, we were able to furlough and use the PPP loan, and we kept everybody
Oh, wow.
through
That's
the
tremendous.
entire process, because I felt like if last time I let people go, they went. I wanted them to receive money still, and the PPP loan allowed that to happen. So they were still on the team, and then in May things started looking a little better. June hit, and all of a sudden it was like a cannon. It was like a fire hose, and we went from down 85% to 150%.
Oh, wow.
And they were both very difficult to do because the clients, it doesn't matter how good of a product they make, if they can't get their product shipped, they're dead. So we are their oxygen supply, getting their products shipped.
Well, thanks for sharing that. So I would like to take us a little bit different direction. So most entrepreneurs struggle with, like, they start their first goal. Like I'll give you an example. When I started my company, I was like, man, I don't want to work for anyone else. I'm a terrible employee. 2, I want to make enough money to where I never have to say no to anything that my wife wants to do or my significant other wants to do. 3, I just want to grow something that's mine, right?
Yes.
And that was my goal maybe 2 years in, and then my goal changed again. Then it was like, I want to make X, and I want to have all these people trust me. And then goal 3 was like, now I want to be.
I want to make Reese happy.
I want to make Reese happy. And I want to be a superstar.
That's
and then
not true.
That just keeps on shifting. Can you tell me how that's played a part in your life, and maybe how you've managed that?
So a vision is obviously something that hasn't happened yet. And you look in your own, secret window into the future.
Yep.
And it's speculation, and it's educated speculation, and it's based upon the fact that you believe in that vision because you really truly believe that no matter what happens, I'll figure out the problem to get there. So it's like if you're going to climb a big mountain, you can see the top, but you don't see all the little valleys along the way. And even though you're telling your team, we're going to go up there, we're going to climb up there, here's what we're going to do, in your heart, there's probably some valleys that I don't know about. But there's no use telling everybody about it, because they're going to try to solve it, and we're not going to be able to know what it is to solve until we get up there. So my job was just to give them the idea of the goal, and when you get up to that valley, then you work it out. You finish it. Well, one of those valleys that you get to will change your vision along the way. It could be that you can't get through that valley, and you have to change direction. You have to move and go with the flow. So that happened. I mean, it happened at I'd say at Avid Exchange. We started off as an e-marketplace for property management. And so,
wow, that's so radically different.
Well, back in the day, it was kind of like there was a lot of these online marketplaces where vendors and buyers would get together, and the beauty of it was that they'd have electronic purchase orders, electronic invoices. It'd all be efficient, ordering, predictable, and so it really made sense at the time. But the property management world was very much pretty rigid in how they would buy their products, their light bulbs, their landscaping. And it makes sense too. You don't want to just pick your landscaper based upon a price. You want to pick them based upon your relationship with your landscaper. So we were struggling with that a little bit. But one of the modules that we had was our invoice system that would convert your paper invoices into digital invoices, digital purchase orders. It flows seamlessly into the back end of the client's accounting systems. So that was just a module at the time. And then I don't know if you remember Enron.
I do.
Okay.
Remember very well.
So there was a huge fiasco.
Do you remember Enron?
It sounds familiar.
So,
No, go ahead.
So Enron was a giant company, and if I'm not mistaken, it's been years since this was. I mean, I was in like elementary school at the time, but
like 2002 or 2001, 2002.
Yeah, it's probably, I don't know, middle school or something. But they essentially lied on their P&L, and a bunch of people invested in it, correct? And then the company just went completely belly up.
Well, they created a lot of shell companies,
right,
offshore, and then those shell companies were buying from Enron.
Yeah.
And it was
So
inflating.
it was like a circle.
It was creating a higher revenue, which was fooling the investors. And so, and then when they came after the CEOs and CFOs, they were going like, "Well, I didn't know," and completely ignorant. So, the government came up with this law, the Sarbanes-Oxley law, and it was basically, in a nutshell, says, moving forward, CEOs and CFOs, C-level executives cannot use ignorance any longer as a defense. So when that happened, I kind of think of that like our Forrest Gump moment in a way. We're the ship in the ocean, and all of a sudden, all these C-level executives said, "I need to know what's going on in real time." And next thing you know, that's really, we had that module, and that became the Avid exchange. That became the key thing. We're digitizing, and it's grown into facilitating payments between vendors and clients. So we started off as an e-marketplace, and then it converted into basically a fintech company. We're
completely shifted.
Yeah, fintech before fintech was really well known as a term even. So you have to roll with the punches. That was never the vision, and this is where I refer to Mike Prager as the legend of this, because mere mortals would have died at this thing. Companies were going. There was a dot-com bomb that went off there. You can research this. And when Enron sunk, we were like, everybody around us is dying. There's a couple companies in our space, Facility Pro and Site Stuff. They had 72 million and 45 million funding, and we had about $1 million or less. We were like, I remember flying up to DC and going into into Facility Pro's boardroom. I think it was them or Site Stuff, but their boardroom was phenomenal. I mean, the guy was going on and on about his boardroom. They spent $1 million on their boardroom, and it was truly remarkable. I mean, they had really cool stuff there, and we had our basic
your
stuff
conference
there.
line and a projector and chairs.
And we were putting all our energy into building relationships, And I said, "How many sales guys do you have?" And the guy says, "Well, we don't really have any, because we're building this, and the clients will just come to the whole thing." And I was like, "Are you not aware of the dot-com bomb that happened? That was the rallying cry that really upset a lot of other people up there, thinking that you'll just." So I didn't say that.
Yeah, right.
I thought, well, that's a good idea.
Yeah,
I
good
suggest
job.
you keep on doing that.
Keep doing that.
Yeah.
So
a couple more conference rooms.
Yeah. And the thing is that moving and adjusting your goals is going to happen. You can't, because you're speculating.
Yeah.
You just can't go to your team or a bank for that matter, say like, "Yeah, I'm speculating."
Right.
They want to know exactly what's going to happen, as if you know the future, and that's you have to think like that. You have to think like that. But deep down inside, we know, like, they do know that it's the future.
Right. Yeah. Anything could happen.
And we don't know the future. We do know that. So you just have to adjust. So there's going to be changes. There will be changes in your path as you grow your business.
Yeah, I mean, we already see some of them.
Yeah, a lot in our industry, to be sure. Interestingly, though, you remind me of, so the LLC that our company operates under is called Sales Step by Step, which is what he started and by himself. And
that's cool.
Yeah. And so at the time, he was doing sales training because he was so very good at it. And then he slowly shifted that by his own volition to doing marketing for companies. And then I came in about 6 months, something like that, 6 months later. And so we converted completely over to a marketing company. So he was going from sales training, and then he went hard right, and then we've been doing marketing ever since. So
I had a lot of training because I had some Fortune 500 companies help me out with sales training when I was younger, right after personal training. And then once I was starting to actually help people learn how to do it correctly, I just didn't like it. It just didn't feel good. And I was like, this just feels scummy. So I was like, I'm just going to start doing marketing instead. And then I got really good at it. He got really good at it. We started saying yes to things we had no clue how to do.
Oh boy.
And then we learned
That's a whole story we'll tell you.
We learned it all,
We've all done that.
Every entrepreneur says yes to something they have no clue how to do.
You have to.
Yeah.
Because you don't know how to do it.
This is my favorite Christian story. So he would come, we've been best friends for so long that he'll give me a facial expression. I can pretty much tell what he's thinking, And so he would come into my office. I'd be campaigning. This is in the early days of our company. He'd kind of give me that sly smile. I'd look at him and I would go, no. To whatever you're about to say, the answer is no. And he's like, hey, buddy, do you know how to do this? I'd be like, I have no idea how to do that. I have absolutely zero experience with it. And then he'd say, well, you got 24 hours. You're going to have to learn how to do that. And it would just make me blow gaskets and stuff. And then I would learn how to do it in about 12 hours.
I don't know if you've ever done this, but you literally have to meet customers, especially in the early days. You have to meet customers where they are, where their problems are. Mm-hmm. You can't know what they are magically, so you have to learn how to help.
Yeah.
That's all we did.
Yeah.
And then we learned everything about marketing, and now they're changing everything.
By the way,
again, do it again.
That is the best sales process.
Yeah.
It's called need satisfaction sales.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. You're just identifying a need.
Mm-hmm.
Then your skill at doing that will determine how much you can sell. If you can identify strong needs that you can solve, you got the deal sold. You don't have to you don't have to hard close it.
Right.
You're just there. You're basically helping them make a decision as opposed to trying to force a decision out of them.
Yeah, I love how the world's changed to that. Yeah. A lot of our competitors, they make their own money in their own sense, but they're forced to do these cookie cutter ideas. I don't know if you ever went to a marketing pitch before, but it's usually like, you should do SEO and Google ads. Mm-hmm. You should do social media. Yeah. And it's not like, what are you doing? Why are you trying to get to? Yes. Here's what I advise. Da, 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 da. It's like, this is my cookie. Mm-hmm. Do you want my cookie?
Yes, my cookie tastes the best.
Well, I know you guys are very, very good at building relationships.
Thank you. We try to be.
Yeah, that takes a lot of. You have to have that naturally in you to sustain that. Mm-hmm. And so that's why your business is doing so well, is because you're building sustainable relationships with people, companies that will not just buy from you, but can refer you on to different things, and they won't leave you. They'll come back to you. Because you realize this isn't a point of sale. This is a relationship for life. It's a marriage in a sense that you're trying to build with every one of your employees.
I probably got 30 years at this. I need everybody I meet to still like me in 30 years. It probably won't happen to the perfection of that, but it's my goal.
Yeah. I started hating him about 5 years ago, and I'm still with him. So I joke about that.
I don't know how they'll ever hate you guys.
Yeah. Oh, we appreciate that. So out of curiosity, do you have any stories about relationships over the years of I'll give you an example. So a twice certified business legend, a guy that's been on our show, great friend of ours, Clifford Blanquisette Jr. with Blank Real Estate and now Biz Exchange. Great guy. Shout out Clifford. He tells this story about how when he was just starting in business, he had this idea, right? And he wasn't worth that much money at the time. He's starting his business, and he bought a very expensive bottle of whiskey because he knew that the person that he wanted to talk to loved whiskey. And he flew to New York. Was it New York? Do you remember? He flew somewhere.
Yeah, I think it was New York.
It doesn't matter where he flew.
So you're missing a piece. This guy he flew to New York for wouldn't even take his phone call.
Wouldn't take his phone call. Yeah, but he had a big bottle of whiskey of some sort, and he went there and he said, "Hey, I came here to give you this because I want to talk to you about business." And the guy's like, "Sold." And so that's how he did it. Do you have any stories like that from your entrepreneurial journeys?
Well, in the early days of Avid Exchange, our name was actually avidexchange.com. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And after the .com bomb, I would call up prospects and I'd say, "Hi, I'm with avidexchange.com." And the .com was so toxic that we actually legally had to remove the .com off the name. That's why it's just called Avid Exchange. But I would fly up to Chicago and I would set up multiple lunch meetings because there would be so many lunch meetings that would just not want to meet you,
Sure.
and other things to do. I've been in just about every big, tall building in the United States.
Oh,
because
wow.
we're talking to,
That's where the magic happens.
yeah, well, that's with property managers.
Yeah.
And they're either at the very top or the very bottom, it seems, of these different buildings. But the whole point was that when I'd get up there and there would be some rejection, but it'd be okay because there'd be another one. But the rejection was a point of contact.
Right.
And so I never looked at that as a rejection. I would call them again. Eventually, after so many touches, I'm sure there's some mathematical formula for it. But they would go, okay, I'll see, because I was basically proving to them that I'm consistent.
Yeah.
So I knew I had to show them that just out of my behavior. And so, I would say when we lost half the business at Paystar, I flew up to Kohler, Wisconsin, and I met with the guy at the time. He ran the international, and we were shipping a lot of product from the United States to Canada. And I met with him, Joe Pines, the real amazing guy. And most people at Kohler in the company Kohler, they've been there for 20, 30, 40 years.
Wow.
People stay there. And
This was like a manufacturing place or industrial place?
yeah, Kohler, Wisconsin. Well, they make all the known for their kitchen and bathroom supplies.
The fact that he had that attrition rate at a manufacturing plant, that's outrageous.
Yeah,
That's good.
yeah, and they have plants all over the place, and they ship in from Asia and what have you. But I had to go up there, and I had to salvage this, and so I thought about bringing something but I thought, it's going to be, this might be a case where bringing nothing will be better.
Right.
Because I just want them to see me in it, just without anything. And I sat down, and I was just very honest. I said, when you shut that plant down, we had half our business in that. I know that you're shifting and stuff. All I want is an opportunity to win some of your other business. That's all. Don't give it to me. And he said, okay, I will. And he said a couple of lanes. And I said, okay. And I stood up and I put my hand out, shake on it. And okay. And he stood up and he shook on it. And I said, okay. And then that moment, that triggered him.
Yeah. This is real now.
I made a commitment here.
Yeah.
Like I tell most vendors that come here that, yeah, of course I will. But this time, this guy made me shake his hand, which I did. I shook his hand when I left. But this was a shake on your commitment to give me. And sure enough, they started giving us some lanes, and they're still a client to this day.
Awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So yeah, I think every entrepreneur gets to that point where you go like, man, I got to figure something out because I got to break into this client somehow.
For sure.
Yeah.
On that note, do you feel like there's still a lot of I call it good old boy business technique, which is to say like if I shake your hand and tell you that I'm going to do something, I will do it. Period.
Yeah.
And that's just the way I was raised. If I can't do it, I'm not going to shake your hand. I'll be like, I'll see about it, and I'm not going to lie to you about it either. But do you feel like there's still a lot of business out there that gets done on handshakes, or do you think it's all written behavior these days?
Almost the entire trucking business is done they have contracts, but it's the word.
Yeah.
This is the
really
land
nice.
that time forgot.
Yeah.
I mean, it's been run the same way for over 100 years.
Wow.
And the reason it exists is because everything that we're wearing today and drinking today, everything is on a truck at some point.
Yep.
So you have to have a truck. It's not a desire. It is an absolute need, or you die.
Right.
So the need for the service is what keeps the whole trucking business there. So they are going to have a natural demand for them. And so that whole business has not changed a whole ton in a long time.
That sounds really great about that business, I'll be honest.
I struggle. I probably spent $1 million in the early going, and I'm a sales trainer. And I hate bad sales. When you're a trainer, you're a connoisseur. I love when I come across a person that's really good at selling something, because they're not selling anything to me. They're helping me decide, and they're completely casually indifferent, but respectfully casually indifferent, whether I buy or not.
Right.
Meaning that he's being very objective with me.
Yeah.
Which means that he respects my. So that's the type of sales that I love, and I'm a sales trainer. But in this business, I brought in the best people I knew in sales, who sold very well, that need satisfaction type of sales, and we were not getting anything. We were struggling. We had a couple key accounts that just fell into our laps through some luck, but it wasn't because of our strong sales. And I realized that, these people that you have a corporation like Kate Gap, they're getting clothing in, or they're really good at distributing these clothing and these different brands and have you, but their shipping departments, transportation departments, they get attaboys for saving money, but they get fired if they don't move it.
Gotcha.
So the relationship is critical for their job's sake. So that's what we were up against. We had to try to get in between these relationships to sell. And I finally, in 2010, I actually gave up. I'd spent $1 million on salespeople over those first 7-8 years, and nothing to really show for it. And so there was one trucking company out there, and it's the best. They're the most profitable truck company on earth. It's Heartland Express. They at the time they were doing $600 million a year. They're doing a lot more now. Wow. But their guy that led their sales, his name was Lindsay Rains, and he was a legend. He still is a legend in the trucking world. Walmart was a client of ours. I remember sitting in. They have this thing called the Big Dance, where they invite key vendors in. I remember when
Jordan told us about that.
When him and his entourage came in, the whole place just shut right down. And,
oh wow!
And they're like, "Oh, that's Lindsay. And this big guy, 6'4", 6'5" guy, walks in and just like owned the world, and he had relationships. And I said to myself, "That's what I need." And so I spent 3 years going after Lindsay Rains.
Oh wow! 3 years.
3 years.
Yeah.
It took a long time. For one thing, I respected Heartland. I didn't want to get in Heartland's bad graces. But on the same token, I knew Lindsay may be looking for another opportunity, And so it took me 3 years of, and the thing about Heartland back then, they were debt free, and the old man who started the whole thing, he was debt free.
Wow.
And I realized that Lindsay really admired that characteristic. So I spent about 18 months getting myself debt free and getting the company debt free, so that when I had another lunch with him, because he was like a mentor and still is a mentor to me in the trucking world. Once I had paid off my last bet, my mortgage, I said, I had lunch with him. I said, I had to just drop it. Like, well, I don't have a mortgage. I know that's probably pretty stupid. Anyways, and
Don't have a mortgage, eh? Yeah.
He was like, what? And that caught his eye. And so lots of that stuff to position myself in a position where he'd want to join in a way that was respectful to Heartland, to Paystar. And finally, he joined us in 2014. And
was it everything you needed?
It's more a business than, as I mentioned, we don't market. We pick the very best clients that have the best fit for us. Our goal isn't to grow fast. Our goal is just to grow great. And so
that's well said.
And that's what we're doing. We're extremely efficient. We spend a lot of money on our technology to keep up with the sales. But the clients that we select are they mesh so well with us, and they admire the relationships that we build up, and we commit to them in such a way that no other truck company can do this. And this is why I'm not allowed to mention it, but we're a carrier of the year for a big Fortune 500 firm.
All right.
And up for it again. So, and this is against billion-dollar truck companies. And so we're this niche little, Paystar up in Cornelius, North Carolina, but we ship all through the United States, all through Canada, and it's all because of having Lindsay come on to Paystar. Was he owned these relationships? He had such he had 30 years of relationships that where these key decision makers just trusted him with his life. And when he came there, Gap, Home Depot,
that's so interesting.
Lots of other companies.
You brought on a person that had all the relationships, and then you were able to focus on innovating and keeping his relationships happy. And
yes,
that's interesting. That's an interesting way to attack.
It's like you grew, instead of growing through a technological platform, which you had as well, but it's like you grew through the relationships of a person, or the relationships of people, I should say.
Yeah. And his happiness was one of the drivers, just like my employees' happiness is a driver for me. It's like a thermometer, tells me if we're doing the right thing. So making sure and when Lindsay gets upset, everyone knows.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, he's a big imposing guy. We're very, very good friends now.
Yeah.
And he's a phenomenal entrepreneur now.
Yeah.
And he went from a job to a owner.
Yeah.
And it's a tough transition when you're in a job for 30 years. But he's a very happy guy, and he's doing well. He loves his clients, love him, love us. He's loving life. And before, he used to have a target date to retire, and we're loving what we do so much that
no reason.
Yeah, no reason.
Retirement's it's not an end goal anymore.
Yeah.
If he retired, he'd probably want to do this for fun.
Yeah.
What, your goal shifted again?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's going to be the name of our shows. Sometimes goals shift.
Yes.
That's it.
Yes. Well,
sometimes, but always.
Yeah.
Yeah. Redefining success is a good way of describing it. We kind of redefined it. We weren't just, our numbers were, you have to have mathematical numbers. There's a system called EOS. I don't know if you guys heard that. If anybody is watching this, that's paramount to have an EOS-like system in your business. Checks and balances. It creates traction for your goals. It's a way of measuring everything. We do this. We have an exec meeting every Wednesday. We have L10 meetings with every department, and we set goals. We have like a 5-year, 3-year, 1 year, and so all that is fantastic in our.
That's where we are in the journey of our business life. We're starting to implement that now.
Yes.
And trying to get used to doing it consistently. We've already seen the effects of it though, because when you create the 5-3-1, you're like looking into the future and you're looking at a goal that is unachievable with your hands. Like I cannot physically sell enough with just me.
It's called a BHAG.
Yeah, it's
big, hairy, audacious goal.
Yeah, and then you're like, so what do I do? Do I have to hire this guy who has all these connections to get to my goal, or do I have to buy a company, or do I have to shift into government RFPs? Like what do I have to do to hit that, and how do I implement it? It makes you think in such a different way.
Well, and it requires persistence, dedication, never giving up too. I equate it to a game of baseball where you have unlimited strikes. And just because you missed it 3 times, you get the hit, you get the swing again. But you have to make sure your cash is coming. But so you take like sales. It took me 7 years and $1 million to get it.
Yeah, to figure out how you need to do it for your
I
business.
never would have survived had I just given up after the first $500,000.
Yeah. And I'm sure you didn't get them for cheap either. So
yeah.
No, it took a lot of drive and persistence. And I'll tell you I don't know. I'm not sure if you guys you're married, and so you have to have are you married?
Single.
Yeah. So making the right decision.
Tell by the beard line. Yeah. Like mine's all scruffy and his is like
perfect.
Of all your business decisions, that's probably the biggest decision you make.
Having a big beard line.
That's how your beard looks. And then also, a close second is your spouse or your significant other. That plays a major role in your success, and they got to be able to handle the entrepreneur world.
Yeah.
And most women want safety, security, protection, and when you're an entrepreneur, that's the antithesis of that in their mind a lot of times. So you have to have the right significant other that can support you and be there and still give you respect. And
Yeah, I have to brag about mine. I literally left I was a VP of marketing and sales over at a drone company, and I left a 6-figure cushy income to make $0.00 as a brand new business owner. And she stuck it out, and that was like her first year and a half. Like she had no reason to stick it out. Like she could have.
I'm impressed, man. That's impressive.
Yeah, she stuck it out.
Yeah.
And
She's an impressive woman.
And helped support me through it. And lucky her, actually, we got really lucky in the beginning and met some people and did some really good work for somebody.
Yeah.
Ended up turning into, we did really good work for One Anytime Fitness, and because it was so successful, he referred us to like 40-some. So we had 40-some Anytime Fitnesses in our first like 4 months of business.
Yeah.
4 months of business together, I should say.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, and every bit helped.
Mm-hmm.
Every person's ability to support you helped. You know, and the wife is maybe the biggest role in that whole entire thing, because that's where you spend. You go home and man, that support I had, and my Beth is my wife, and man, I'll tell you what, I never would have made it without her support.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember how supportive she was just back in the day when we were sitting across the table from each other.
Doing push-ups.
Yes, she pushes me on my workouts. So she definitely does.
That's awesome.
She's still got that jolly attitude.
Yeah, they'll never change. She's just an amazing woman like that. Yeah,
That's incredible. Well, Chris, you have been a spectacular guest. Thank you so much for joining us today. We always sign off of Business Legends, where I stall, by the way. We always try to ask a funny question at the end, just to lighthearted ending here. But I think I got one today.
Oh, what you
I
got?
got one. On a scale of 1 to 10, how good of a personal trainer was Christian? God is watching.
no. Beth and I were talking about you yesterday.
Hopefully it was good things.
Oh, God.
Yeah, no, it was all really good, and we said that we had a number of trainers after you, and the reason we stopped going was because we just weren't getting the same level of support out of it. So
That's good to know.
Yeah, I'd say you were the best trainer I had, and
Must have had some terrible trainers. No, I'm kidding. Christian's spectacular.
I have a great trainer now.
Yeah.
She used to be on my daughter's soccer team.
Oh, cool.
And I used to help coach it a little bit.
Yeah.
And I think she's getting even with me because she really runs me ragged.
Yeah,
She
makes
gets
sense.
me ready for skiing.
Yeah.
Skiing is one of my greatest passions.
You got to go with us. We
Yep.
go 4 or 5 times a year.
Yep. We'll talk about that. at lunch
33
for sure.
days, baby.
We'll talk about it
33
over.
days.
I'll
That's
take
awesome.
you to Switzerland or wherever.
Let's do it.
We're going in February. We're going to Zermatt in February.
Next
I was
February.
just there in February.
Oh,
We're planning this over lunch. This is
yeah,
happening.
We'll talk
Yeah.
about it.
Okay. I know. Oh yeah, we'll have a good time.
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
Zermatt. It's fantastic.
So you give him a 8, a 9?
I'd give him. I'd give him a 9.
Wow.
Yeah. Should start a personal training business.
Thank you for blowing up his ego. I'll have to be
Yeah.
dealing with
You
this
have
for
to
the
deal
rest of
with
the week.
that
So.
But really, just a last note for everybody. This just shows how important communication is, though.
Yeah.
Because I was probably the least qualified trainer you'd ever had. I didn't go to school for it. I didn't do
Well,
I had a little certification, and I was probably the smallest trainer you had. I had little tiny arms. But like
The most energy.
I just
for sure.
communicated and
Well, you
wanted
were
to help
asking
you.
questions.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's all. That's what was
You just
important
ask
to me.
questions, and that's so easy. If you don't know, just ask questions. That's the beauty of this.
He didn't
whole
keep folders. We'll talk about that over lunch too.
But I cared. I remember texting y'all like early in the mornings, late
You'd motivate
afternoons.
us.
Yeah, I didn't have to do any of that.
You
Like I
made
was,
us feel accountable, and then we felt good after working out.
Yeah.
So it was like this reward. Yeah, it was very good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I should have started a personal training company.
Should have. We almost did. Back to your point of like rifling, of
Yes.
like lining up the sights and that type of thing. I can speak for Christian comfortably on this one. I think that we take a lot of the lessons that we learned as personal trainers into our business even today. Truthfully,
Yeah.
I mean, there's just
Oh,
so much
sure.
about accountability,
Of course.
relationships, all the
Yeah.
above. But
Yeah.
Chris, thank you so much for joining us today. I can't wait
Thank
for
you
lunch.
for having me.
We're going to talk about skiing and personal training. And congratulations, my friend. You are a certified business legend.
Yes.
Yes.
Certified.
That's what I'm here for.
That's it. All right.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
Thank you.